What's popular, YouTube? Another day, another demo. And we're at 91,400 subscribers. I really wanted to make a HLD TV top 20 predictions video when we got to 100,000 subscribers, but couldn't pull it off. It was just a bit too inconsistent around here in the uploads, and things started to pick back up now that I've come back home, but it wasn't looking too good with some of these videos here. So instead, I just want to do top 1 and 2. As you can see from the tabs, there's a lot of stuff about s1mple today, because he's obviously going to be number 1 or number 2. s1mple and s1mple. Number 1 and number 2. But what order? What order? Is s1mple the number 1 player in the world? I don't know. If you look, if there was an ideal version of a CS:GO player in the sky, I think s1mple and s1mple would look identical. They would be up there basically standing beside each other. It's hard for me to say, man. But if you want to just talk stats, because that's all that matters for this top 20 list, we've got some pretty good arguments for both. Say, for example, if we just go to like, I don't know if I got to do a whole separate video just for s1mple, but here if we go to 2020 stats, and then we take out, and then we pick up s1mple as well, we're looking at virtually identical statistics. Virtually indistinguishable. Can you believe that after the entire year of playing? Now, there's different maps, different teams they played, whatever. That's going to happen. They landed on the exact same rating, 1.29. A difference of 0.1 in the DPR. That's deaths per round. We have, you know, slightly higher impact overall. But then you got to go into the teams they played against. And now we look at the events for this year, right? All the way back to the beginning of the year. Let's go to finished events. Let's sort by... Can we do international LAN? Would that even work? We get Blast Premier Series and Katowice. Yeah, okay. So these are the only 2 really relevant Tier 1 LANs that happened into 2020. Blast Premier Spring Series and IM Katowice. So obviously, Na'Vi won IM Katowice, and they had an incredible match here versus Astralis that everyone talks about. Look at top players. You know, s1mple's not the top player of the event. He was up there, but this was a pretty big event for FaZe and kind of exciting. But we go to results here. There was this very special match, s1mple versus Astralis, and this was one of the matches leading up to a new narrative for s1mple, which I'll get to in a second. Okay, looking to play very well here. 2-1 finish, 16-14. s1mple, I remember, carried the last few rounds here to get to the 16-14. We had a huge round from Electronic as well. Really amazing. We should watch this too. And we look over at Kato and the results of Kato. The 2-0 for Na'Vi versus Astralis. And this was by far the nail in the coffin for Astralis as we knew it. They only came back to this lineup basically in the last few months. And a shout out to Astralis. They've reached number 1 in the world again, and I think are legitimately that team. It's kind of insane how they could. That's for another video, but The odds that this lineup bounce back after a break, I don't think we've ever seen anything like that in CS. But, you know, maybe s1mple slapped them up so hard they had to take a break. That's how bad it got. And well, why is this important? Oh, s1mple plays well. Oh, s1mple plays well on LAN in an important match. We know he does. But versus Astralis, this was not something that he always did. All right, so we go back here to s1mple. We filter by opponents. 2018 is when Astralis pops up on the radar. Sorry, 2017 is when Astralis pops up on the radar. Negative 23 KD differential, 0.96 rating, and more maps played versus them than most other teams in the world. This is Astralis owns them. This is when Glaive does the interview. Oh, s1mple never plays well versus us. It was true. We go up to 2018, and the stats jump up tremendously. You know, it comes into one of his normal. It's not on the higher end, but it's still very, very high. A very nice KD differential. Huge amount of maps played as well, which should dampen the statistics. Overall, marked improvement, right? And then 2019, this was a strange one because he actually didn't play against s1mple in. They didn't play against Astralis more than 3 maps. He had a really good rating in those 3 maps, but it wasn't really a thing. But this is where the story gets really interesting, right? Because now we go 2020 and we've got Astralis here, 22 maps played, by far and away the most amount of maps played, with the highest kill differential versus Astralis than any other team in the world, with a 1.30 rating overall, above his average in the year. And again, 22 maps played. So that just makes it harder and harder, right, to keep up higher stats. So by far and away his best year versus Astralis. And back at Katowice, which is over in like March, I actually had written a video talking about this exact thing that I never released because Nathan didn't finish it. But I actually recorded this whole thing. And it was about how this match was called s1mple's game. This is the script. It was about how this match that we're about to watch today, this 2-0 at Katowice versus Astralis, was s1mple's most important game of his career. Of course, after this, because of Corona, there was no more LANs for the year. This is the LAN that was in person, but there was no audience on the stage at Katowice. I like to refer to it as the silent Katowice. And this was a match that s1mple, you know, completely destroyed Astralis, and then continued on in this year to have his best year versus Astralis, which was a team that he kept continually getting better versus over the years. So we're going to look at Nuke, and if you've seen these videos, you know how I talk about s1mple. He's the best, in my opinion, and by stats, actually blows everyone. He's next highest. He's like 0.20 over z1mple on Nuke on CT side. And for my money, he's the best CT rotator in the game. And this is going to be the first example of it earlier in this year. We're going to watch it. Here's what I wrote back then. s1mple, since his first encounters with Astralis in 2017, has been putting up better stats each year to the point that in the past 6 months, he has better ratings versus Astralis than he has versus any other team in the world. That was even then. For context, and now it's even that now that we're at the end of the year, that stat's even more dramatic, which is pretty crazy. For context, in 2017, Astralis were the only team that gave him a negative rating on the year. So now we're just gonna go look at like this match. We could look at Dust 2 as well, because I had there was a couple of crazy rounds where I was like blown away on Dust 2 in this. But let's just go ahead and hop into this match. And, you know, this conversation of z1mple and s1mple is so interesting. It's crazy that they both exist. It's like, I feel like the odds of z1mple and s1mple existing at the exact same time, the odds of you getting a decoy kill in a major grand final or something. Like, how can these two players exist at the same time and rest on such narrow margins for who is like they're actually both maxing out the stats, and no one can say who is actually objectively better. Of course, s Ukrainian or CIS or Russian, how can you tell if your friend is gonna be a s1mple fan or a ZywOo fan? Just ask them if they hate French people or they hate Russian people, or they are Russian or Ukrainian or they are French. And then there's the one dude who's Danish who says device. But apart from that, the arguments are very hard. The arguments are very hard for who is actually, stats, eye test, whatever you want to call it, man. I think that people have described the difference between the two of them in very beautiful ways. Someone had said, ZywOo, he's perfect, but s1mple does the impossible. I think understand that. But, you can see the individual skill. You can see the individual skill. All right. So in the 16-5 nuke match, 13-2 over Astralis. Let's go ahead and hop into a POV. And this one starts out hot. So I guess I'll might as well use my script. So on this one, so there's a few rounds here. Okay. So this round, he actually rotated into lower and ran through a Molotov just to get into position lower fast enough. After he saw them try to molly him out. And this is the first sign that s1mple was clearly learning how to play versus Astralis. He was using their own tells against them. And now, I don't know, how many demos he watched. I don't know what he, this kind of thing. But we'll see. This will actually count for something. Look at the rotation. In behind the site, committed. Okay. 20 HP on s1mple after he runs through the Molotov. But look at the position that he gets into to get himself a kill. You saw that he actually took 80 damage in a Molotov because he was so sure eventually it was going to be a lower hit. And then committed really, really hard to that read. So this was I think that was a special round to really start this match off because of how hard he was reading into his opponent and where he committed and where he didn't. And what's made s1mple such an amazing to watch CT rotator on this map is his matches versus Astralis, and also the way that he moves around outside to not just take space, which he does, but how he uses it. So when he'll rotate in to help Flamey, or he'll rotate over towards to help Mini, how he'll watch yard by himself to win duels by himself. And how he'll rotate into lower. He's literally going to be in every single part of this map. That's why his stats are #1 so high. Well, #1, his stats could be incredibly low because he'd be dying all the time if he was bad, right? So CT Nuke gives him the most freedom of expression of any other map, any other position that he's ever played. This is the one where he can actually help upstairs, ramp, outside, lower, all in the same round. There's no other map that gives him this much freedom of expression. And since he's comfortable in all these positions, he ends up putting up the most ADR. And when he's playing hot, he's pretty much unstoppable. You can cite the absolutely ridiculous comeback versus Astralis, 22-1 CT side. 22-1 for s1mple on the CT side comeback versus Astralis very recently. And we're on 1280 by 960 4-3. Here's the nade to stop anybody from dropping into the vents. And now we're gonna just basically farm the anti-eco and try to stop people from crossing outside. What we're going to be paying attention into in these next few rounds is how much he moves, where he moves, and how people move around him. how people move around him. Like, he's a shark, right? And when he moves, people move around him, like the Secret Service. Basically, on this half of this map, everybody on Navi is just a feeder fish hiding behind a shark. Basically, I don't know how else to put it. Him and Electronic are playing the two most kind of heavy frag positions, right? So Electronic, he has to watch Mini. It's very important he wins his duels too. And it's not that everyone doesn't. Like, Flamey's a very good ramp holder and everything. But yeah, you kind of constantly have to reinforce all the different parts of your armor, right? See, if Flamey leaves like this, s1mple has to be responsible for this now. He's accountable for Turnpike, for stopping Heaven, for checking on ramp, for helping Flamey in every single way as soon as Flamey has to rotate. So there's incentive for s1mple to go and help him before it becomes too late. And now we'll see, like, he's making an appearance here inside of Mini as well. And Flamey gets an actual ace hold. I think you remember this clip, holding onto the ramp, just to talk about how he can definitely do his job as well. Now, s1mple doesn't get spotted that round, but he's not going to go back to the Mini peak, which is interesting. So here's where Astralis needs to try to figure something else out. Just going to defer to my notes here. And this is where s1mple hits a couple of shots outside and basically, like, at this point, s1mple, this was so insane. He actually just tracked, that's the guy who jumped was Dupree, and he just tracked him over to the smoke, walking out and killed him. And that's where Henry G, he just laughed like a maniac, as I referenced in the script, basically, because he was just so blown away. Like, it was that same type of laugh that you would laugh if you were watching, like, a blatant Overwatch report. It was just like, are you kidding me? And this is continuing on in a series where he basically could not be stopped. So it was something ludicrous. And now 2 up. I don't think I miss anything here. He's been front of Mini, in Heaven, in ramp, a big garage. And let's see how he plays around this. Trying to get the best angle in the smoke possible. So he'll actually shoot, and there's always a reason, right? He could just leave without shooting, but after he shoots, he can run for a rotate and try to find a timing where his opponents are calling that he's rotated, and then hopefully they can run into another op shot, right? So even when he shoots like that, when you choose to shoot, it's a commodity. You have to be careful about when you want to, because it has an impact whether you want it to or not. So you've got to use that to your advantage. Either you shoot to hit a spam because you're not going to leave whatever, or you shoot to rotate really fast away for another opportunity. And of course, the cooldown expires. There's not as much value. He could be anywhere now. Now we're seeing him try to catch a rotator. Zip was the guy he was looking for the whole time. But they don't end up winning the round. 5-2 now. And we eventually come back to the mini pick. And remember what I just talked about with the shooting, because we're going to have a round in this half where the rotation is just like, you'll be like, how could you ever be prepared for it, basically. So he's flashing specifically so Electronic can peek without getting blinded. And Boy, are those flashes delicious. Dupree comes swinging, but it's already 2 for 1. Surely his team doesn't blow this one. And they'll defuse it. Cool. I don't know if we have any good guns available. This might be a farm. Let's see. Just an eco. Oh my god. That was such a blue ball. Okay. Punish the shoulder. And now we're up. Okay. And then here is, of course, the other half of the story. Right? Simple. Oh, he's so smart. Oh, he knows he's the best player in the game because he knows where to be. He's also got the best reflexes in the game. I think 2 main reasons why people call s1mple the best player in the game. Probably the best positioning and the best reflexes. It feels like, you know, unlimited confidence when it comes to where he stands and how he moves around. But, you know, for us to be able to understand the things that he thinks about at this level, we'd only be guessing, right? Like the fact that, okay, so hold on. s1mple here. This is where he shows off a little bit. That one, I don't even know. He wasn't even... The device is like barely on his screen. You know, it has to be a flick, of course. And that's the round over still. But you see, when they've gone lower, he hasn't been sitting in decon waiting to get smoked out, spamming, and then rotating around to control room, and then spamming some more and waiting for the retake. When he thinks they're going lower, he's in the site behind the sight box, right? That's the difference. That's the difference in impact. Anybody can get into a rotator position and spam and throw grenades and wait for their teammates. But not many people can take a match this important, make a read that hard, and commit, and then consistently be right about it over and over again. Of course, you know, if you're wrong, you got a long rotation, you're making too much noise, all this stuff. If you're right, you're in the best position to hit your shots to actually have impact. And I think that's what's really key. Fuck. All right. They're already up on the site. Everywhere they're going is getting called out. s1mple commits down into the site. So this removes his ability to rotate over to ramp, right? So we'll see how he moves around this. He's worried about them dropping into lower. I don't know who thinks him. Is that in Squeaky or not? And he's got info now. One was in Squeaky, and the other one killed Flamey, so he can rotate down again. And I think he does tag Glaive, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. He almost reads that perfectly. Like, right where the player peaks, he's holding that kind of next angle. And here is, I think, the round that made me want to make the video in the first place. I think maybe it's next round. Maybe it's next round. So let's see how s1mple plays it up in the heavens here. Is this s1mple's year? I don't know. I don't know, man. I mean, if Ziwu didn't exist, this was s1mple's year. But it's really hard. is really hard. All right. So he's flash for outside. He punches the shoulder peak. Super fast, of course. And this is just like final nail in the coffin type situation. Again, Astralis have been going back to trying to punish the outside. Electronic has been doing such a good job. Look at that. Catches Dupree jumping through the air. And then check this out, right? Basically sees that they're running. And gets downstairs. Not just downstairs. Into control by the time that they get here. Imagine your device. Imagine your Dupree. And you saw s1mple op you from heaven. And now your device... You're trying to take this information. You're like, I'm going to run lower and commit before anybody gets in position. And s1mple is standing in front of control. Okay, remember that. And s1mple is standing in front of control window outside. Not in the ramp. Not passively waiting. Standing in front of control window. Waiting for you to come up the steps. That's the difference. Do you understand now? That's the difference. That's what he's built differently. That's what other people don't do. It's like there's two of him. We saw that. And zip trades. And that's rip. Do you guys get it now? Why this is so hard? The really hard part is that because we only have those couple of lands with Blast Spring series and Katowice, it makes the stats for the year a little bit bad, but I don't think anyone believes that z1 would have played bad in those lands or not taken over in all the matches he did play in big events, I guess. You know, of course, played incredibly well. And I guess we got to balance out by watching something z1 related tomorrow, but I don't know. I think Beijing maybe would be a good one. Beijing is, of course, could be a simple story too, and they go head to head, and z1 wins because they've got a better team. Vitality are a better team than Na'Vi. But yeah, I mean, it's tough because Vitality are a better team, but z1 also has space, but he clearly shows more skill, right? He shows more skill than like Device on Astralis. More the stats with the better team with more skill, right? I think at one point last year, I was like, it's hard to even say the difference between someone like Device and s1mple when if Device puts up as all these MVPs, s1mple has these crazy stats, but stats wise it's really hard. But you could see Astralis are a better team and Na'Vi are a little bit worse. But here's a situation where z1's having the same amount of impact on a better team as s1mple. And so that makes this really complicated, I think. That makes this way harder. How are we actually looking at this? This is so crazy just to think about. This man was playing MDL here. What? He's only been... His last negative KD was at the Global Challenge. Holy shit. He's never had a negative event. Not even close. What do you even say about that, man? 5th 8. Beijing. So this is the one that we want to look at. The finals of that event. Maybe tomorrow. But it is that interesting part of the year where we get the top 20 coming out. And I don't know who's number 1 and 2. If you know, let me know. I'll see you guys tomorrow for another Lao. Peace.